Guys, I think my Panerai is a fake. Guys, I recently bought a new Panerai and I think it might be a fake. Okay, so Panerai. I've always been interested in Panerai, not particularly because I loved the design at the very beginning, but because I used to work in the central business district in Singapore and there's a lot of finance guys who wears Panerai. It's just this big eye-catching thing on their wrists that I'll see during lunch break. It's not like they're not like anything I've ever seen before, and I've always thought that it looked kind of silly. It's like someone have attached a whole hockey puck on their wrists. Asian guys don't exactly have the biggest statures in the world, so wearing a Panerai sometimes can look a bit out of proportion, out of place on some people's wrists. But I digress. So it wasn't really until I went to the boutique to try on some Panerais that I really started getting interested in the brand itself, and I started understanding why certain design traits were done in a certain way for Panerai, and I started understanding a bit more about the crown guards, and I started understanding, what's the kind of a history behind the brand itself. So that was really my forage into the brand itself, right? Panerai has also a bit of a cult following called the Paneristis, and they're the single largest fan base of any watch brands out there in the world, and possibly actually I would imagine any luxury brands in the world as well. They have a really massive database, and if you were to check out online for Paneristi, you will see a massive database and you will see a massive forum where collectors of the brand will just get together to answer each other's questions. And Panerai actually also released special editions in celebration of this massive fan base that is the Paneristis. So anyway, just a couple of weeks ago, I was going through Carousel. I was just doing a bit of shopping on my own, and I spotted a really good deal on the pre-owned Panerai, the PAM 1005. From the year 2018, I jumped at the opportunity to own and experience the brand at a discount. Right, I was thinking of just probably buying it, play around with it for a couple of months and see whether I really liked it for myself. I've tried a couple of Panerais over the years at boutiques. I started really my watch pick my hobby in 2019, but I really could never bring myself to pull the trigger because of the size of the Panerai watch and my worry for its weight. I personally don't really like heavy watches. Most recently, I tried on the 1085, the Blue Mare in Singapore, and it was really beautiful with the sunburst dial. At retail, I was a bit hesitant. At retail price, I was a bit hesitant because I wasn't sure whether I would like it as much down the line, and I wasn't exactly ready to take the hit at retail if I were to decide to sell it. So I've met up with the seller who has a really strong positive vibe about him. He explained to me the whole entire service history of this 1005 and also provided me with all the relevant box and papers. So at that point in time, I kind of knew that Panerais were among some of the most heavily faked watches in the industry. So I thought to myself to bring the loop, check out the details, look at the crown guard, look at the details of the engraving, so on and so forth. And I was feeling pretty good about the watch, so I pulled the trigger. I told myself, hey, you know what? This is probably the real deal. This is probably going to be the right thing for me to do at a heavy discount as well. And that was when doubt started to set in. While I was enjoying the watch through the first week, I couldn't really help but to think to myself, but what if this watch was a fake? What if I bought a fake watch? A fake Panerai at that? I had really a bit, limited experience with Panerais in the past. I've only ever tried them at boutiques and ADs. I don't have any kind of a hands-on experience or prolonged experience in handling them. So there were times over a couple of weeks that I had the watch. I was thinking to myself, hey, you know what? I've checked everything that I could have checked. This watch is probably real. But there are times, different days when I was sitting there looking at the watch and I just kind of felt like whether that can't shake the feeling that something was wrong with the watch itself, right? And so I wasn't able to put it past myself to really trust my own judgment to say that, hey, I've made the right call. This watch is real. I've checked everything that I've checked. No regrets. Enjoy the watch, whatever it is. Just trust your gut. It's the real deal. So this is the part where I think I should give you a bit of background in terms of a watch, the watch that we're looking at today. So this is the PAM 1005 from the year 2000, the T series. So Panerai likes to run a bit of a limited quantity of watches on a yearly basis. I'm not sure why they do this. I don't see that much of a demand, or rather lack of a supply. So I'm not sure exactly how this limited run of quantity really affects their watches. I think this particular model runs a limit of 2,500 watches for that year, as far as I could tell. And each of these watches will have its own number out of the 2,500. So to be fair, I think it's a bit of a gimmick if you ask me. I really don't care for which number I've gotten, even if I purchase it at retail. The watch is at 44 mm in diameter, and I think it's about 53 mm across for lug to lug. The lug width is at 24 mm, and we have the signature crown guard from Panerai that the brand is so synonymous with. We also have a 100-meter water resistance with this reference, and mainly is because of the snap-on case back, as opposed to the more reliable screw-down case back that offers way better water resistance at about 300 meters, if I'm not mistaken. Now, Panerai also offers two types of dials, and the one that's on this dial is a sausage dial, where you can see that the lume is applied on the dial in fat, chunky volume, whereas for the sandwich dial, the lume is actually applied a layer beneath the actual dial of the watch. So and the numbers are actually cut out in stencils. It's a really nice effect, and I think they offer it for the most part in the automatic 42 mm and different versions itself, but not so much the base movement, the base low versions of the Panerai itself. I personally prefer neither. I actually like both of them. I think each of the dial version has its own charm, and I think the way that numerals are designed in the curvaceous kind of a way, I think it's very attractive. So I think it's really to each their own. You like the sandwich dial, or you like both, or you only like the sausage dial. It's really to each their own. So now, anyway, so back to the story. So I was really feeling a bit uneasy about the whole watch, because I just really couldn't shake the feeling that I may have make a terrible mistake, thousands of dollars of mistake. So I decided to look up for a watch authentication service here in Singapore. Now I understand that people are gonna give me a hard time and give me flack for not doing the authentication before I made the transaction. And to be fair, you guys were right. I should have done my due diligence. I should have done, the best thing for myself, pay a bit extra money, get the guy to come down with the watch, get it authenticated, and all this before making the purchase itself. But I was stupid. I was impulsive. I wasn't going to risk opening the case back myself, even though it's a snap-on case back, because I was worried that first of all it's going to damage the watch. I wasn't perhaps not going to be able to put back the case back, and I wasn't going to be able to properly have its water resistance remain intact after the whole little maneuver that I wanted to do. So I went down to the workshop to get it authenticated. And the watchmaker, William, he was really patient with me, and he made sure that he took down all the questions that I had about the watch, why I thought that it was potentially a fake, and the circumstances I bought the watch under, so that he could answer and specifically look out for details that will help answer my queries. So right here, that's something I want to tell you guys as well. So at the very beginning, I was thinking about the fact that there are certain parts of the lume that I thought wouldn't apply exactly very evenly on this watch, and second of all is that I was worried about the distortion of the crystal, because I was told on online source that this kind of watch it shouldn't have any sort of distortion when viewing the dial from the angle. And lastly, there was a bit of play on the movement itself, so that's something that I was worried about as well. If it's going to be a cheaper version, if it's going to be a fake movement, that will kind of explain why there's a bit of play when operating the crown, the watch itself, when I'm trying to set the time. So William was able to open the case back. He was able to show me the movement right away. He was able to tell me the different types of movements and the history of some of the ETA movements this watch will come with, and how it performs, right? And the whole entire process really just took about 40 minutes, where while he went through step by step to check on individual components of the watch. He looked at the case back. He looked at the handset. He looked at the movement. But at the actually, to be fair, the first moment that he opened the case back, he was able to give me the conclusion. The watch is real. So thankfully, this turned out to be a happy ending for myself. Hallelujah. But I think there's a lot that I learned from this particular exercise, particularly about the things that I should look out for before buying my next watch. I think it won't deter me from buying another pre-owned watch from the community. But in conclusion, I think there's a couple of points that I really think will be valuable for anyone who wants to purchase a pre-owned watch, especially in Panerai. It's once again because it's one of the most heavily faked watches in the industry. Number one, know the watch that you're buying. Do a lot of research on the specific model and reference that you're buying, the details, the nuances, the movement, and by knowing everything that you need to know about this watch, you'll be a bit more sure about your purchase. Buy the seller. I think a lot about this hobby is about trust. So if you're gonna be buying a pre-owned watch, and if you're gonna buy it from maybe say an individual, it's always good to buy from someone with a lot of positive review. I don't think this is any sort of rocket science, but I think it's really, really important to just find someone that you can trust and find someone that you think will not put you under. I think also at the same time, avoid photos that have been taken as though it's taken from a potato, because you just really can't tell a lot of details from really bad photos. And lastly, any refusals to give additional photos, I think is a major red flag. So that's probably something to check out as well. Box and papers. Having the proper set will not only aid in the authentication of the watch, but will also help you to make the reselling process, if you want to let it go, a lot smoother as well. A lot of the collectors out there, they like to just not just collect the watch itself, but also the papers, the box that it comes with. So I probably would strongly encourage that you will get box and paper alongside with the watch itself. Now, I don't think it really would sway a lot when it comes down to how much you can sell it for again, but much more for the fact that it will be easier for you to make that sale in the future. Having box and papers, to be honest, I don't think it's also going to specifically help a lot when it comes down to authentication of the watch, because there are a lot of watches nowadays, super fakes, they come with really, really similar boxes and similar papers. They can fake everything out in the world right now. So I don't trust this. I don't call to box and papers to be a proof of authenticity. But it's better to have it than not to have it, because it's somehow one added layer, if you will, right? And lastly, when in doubt, just ask an expert. Now, I chose to go to an authentication service this time around, albeit I should have gone to them earlier on. I paid a little bit more than I've liked, but on forums there are also a lot of helpful people, such as the Watch You Seek community and the Paneristi community, if you want to buy a Panerai. And they are very, very willing to help out in authentication. Once again, you need to have clear photos, you need to have really good pictures, and you have to show them different, perhaps the movement, or maybe specific close-up images of the watch itself. So I think it's always good to find someone, or at the very least have these kind of resources at your disposal, and just make sure that you have done all your proper research, so that you can make the purchase with a peace of mind. So that's my story. That's my Panerai story itself. So thankfully I didn't buy a fake Panerai at the end of the day, but that's definitely something I want to keep in mind in the future when I do purchase my next watch from the pre-owned market. And now it's time for me to enjoy this watch, this Panerai. See you guys next time. If you like the content that I put out here on this channel, please do remember to like, share, and subscribe. It would really mean a lot to me, and it helps me to continue putting out more interesting content. Thank you and peace out.